Congresswoman Eddie Bernice-Johnson of the fine state of Texas joining me right now. Congresswoman, what do you make of these developments?
Well, I'm happy to hear that the Speaker and the President will be speaking with each other again. It's difficult. It is very difficult because there are some very different thoughts. It is clear that some of us are more concerned about the people, the working people, and some are not as concerned about the working people, and so that's where the line is drawn.
Well, why are you casting Republicans as unconcerned about working people? They look like they're trying to strike a deal, like your side, I guess, is trying to strike a deal. No one loves people any less, right?
I did not say Republicans, because there are people on both sides of the aisle that feel very, very strongly about not punishing people that are already at the bottom of the barrel, and there are people on the other side. So it's a matter, it's not so much whether I'm going to focus on party, though I think that speaks for itself. I'm going to focus, frankly, on how the frame of mind might be for the individuals.
All right, but we don't have a lot of time, Congressman, right, not only for this interview, but to get a deal done, right? So we know that Republicans have offered $800 billion in tax hikes. They haven't spelled out how they'll go about that. They don't want rate hikes. The devil's in the details on how you get past that. They then turned back at Democrats to say, all right, we want to see your cuts. What would you, Congresswoman, put on the table when the Congressional Black Caucus has ruled out entitlements? Many of your leaders in Congress have ruled out entitlements. Where would you do some trimming?
First of all, we have to think about revenue generation. We have cut to the bone, and we're willing to look at additional cuts.
Where have you cut to the bone?
We have not.
Where have you cut to the bone? We're off another year spending $1 trillion more than we're taking in.
Hold it. Each time we cut, we're cutting jobs. When you continue to cut jobs, your economy is not going to get better. People will not have money to spend. There's no demand for goods. Manufacturing stops. So you've got to consider that we cannot continue to cut jobs to get where we need to go.
Well, does that mean, okay, I understand where you're coming from, but does that mean, Congresswoman, that you would be against any more cuts in spending as part of this deal? That's just not going to happen.
I'm willing to look at cuts, but we have not been involved.
Where would you look at them? Where would you look at them?
There are a number of places which we can look.
Like where?
But the first thing we need to do is look at revenue generation.
I know that. I know. You're right. Time's a wasting, right? Where would you cut? Where would you be open to trimming spending?
I am open to trimming spending on all of the tax breaks that we are giving to the rich.
All right, but that's a revenue issue, ma'am. I mean, and you're free to have it. Where would you cut spending outright? Would you cut any entitlements? Would you slow the growth in any of the entitlements some of your colleagues are leery to address?
Okay, let me just say this. Entitlements are on the table. There are some places within entitlements that we can't look at. We can look at trying to decide where we cut the income of persons who are using Medicare. That would be one of the ones that we could look at.
But you would be against raising the age for Medicare, even if it was 20 years out. You would be against that?
Let me say this. Well, you know what? We cannot sit here and talk about age 20 years from now because the jobs will differ. I will not agree to raise the eligibility on people who work in mines, people who work at fire stations, people who work as law enforcement officials that are high stress. I will not vote for them to be 70 years old.
Well, your heart might be in the right place, Congresswoman, but the Republicans will hear this, what you're saying. And they're going to say, all right, well, the good Congresswoman doesn't want to cut entitlements, doesn't even want to address raising the Medicare age 20 years out. What they're saying is, we're putting tax hikes on the table, and the Democrats aren't putting anything on the table. And therein lies the rub, right?
What tax breaks are on the table? Well, as long as I've been listening, and I've been right here, they're objecting to having any type of modification of the tax breaks for the very rich.
All right, now let's say I think they're going to cave on that, Congressman. I think whether it's by raising the Clinton
if they were going to cave, if they were going to cave, we'd be here voting on it.
All right, well, but see, even when they cave, and they will, they're waiting for you to say, you caved on that, here's what I'm going to cave on for you. And you didn't cave on anything, Congresswoman. Everything you said was taxes, 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 and not a word about anything you
haven't heard anything I've said because you've never stopped talking to listen.
Well, what are you
haven't heard anything
Tell me what you've got.
I just finished telling you that there are a number of things of which we can look at.
No, you told me things you do to raise taxes. That's what you told me. Credits, allowances, that's what you
cannot talk about, you got to talk about revenue generation. One of the
I know that, but it's 100% of what you're talking about, Congresswoman.
It is not 100% of what I'm talking about. If you shut up for just a second,
you got to tell me one thing you've got. I beg you, Congressman, one thing you would tell your district, I'm going to cut this. What would it be? You don't know, do you?
Well, yes, I do know, but I have to have time to explain it. I can't tell you I'm going to walk in and cut this and cut that. First of all, it has to be some type of dialogue. We have not had that.
All right.
We have to see what is being proposed so we can react to it.
Gotcha.
We have said what we're willing to look at.
All right, well, you haven't done that. You haven't done that, but hope springs eternal, ma'am.
Well, you might,
Congressman, I want to get you back, but this was a total waste of time. We'll have more.
I am not, because we have not had the opportunity.